fence. So let's say your fence extends all the way here up until your pre-millers here. So they're fixed at the point of rocker motion. So as the piece comes through, it hits the first block here, which is turning towards the panel. Obviously, you want to, as the board's coming, you want to cut into the panel so you don't want to chip out the other way. Then on the last 60mm or so of the panel, this cutter will come in. So we'll go from that position to come into that position, and what that does, it's rotating the other way, it's cutting the other way. So at the back of the body, also cutting into it, so you're not going to have any chip out on the back of the board. Now that unit's controlled by the switch in here. Each unit's got its own little switch just to let them know where the panel is and at the start to move into place. Yeah, but they're preset, you don't have to adjust those. So they're your pre-mill blocks. Next, the board will come up to this element here. So it's hard to see, but on the face there's a metal plate. So as the board comes in, it looks along the face of that metal plate, which is heated by this element, warms it up, and it just makes the glue easier to stick to the board. You know, if the board's warm, the glue's going to stick better. You can have less adhesion issues for the tape. Next, what it comes to is the glue pot here. So this is the glue pot, which is one which we've got white in at the moment, the white glue.
Will we end up getting a spare glue pot?
You've got another glue pot there. We'll go through what the glue pot looks like in a bit. But yeah, as the ball comes along, what you'll find is it'll come and it'll move the glue pot. So basically, you just want to have, you get positive, we'll call copy. The board's copying on the glue pot, so it's getting positive contact. So it'll come along, and the glue pot will go like that. It just means it's running along the edge of the.
Is that adjustable on the last machine? That was adjustable in and out.
It's set. You always need to touch. So
yeah. I suppose because you didn't have it fixed on the other machine, you had to wind it in on the different edges.
Okay, yeah, because it's fixed. So even if you take nothing off, it'll still touch. If you take 2mm off, it'll still touch the glue pot.
There's some good benefits of that. Having like the fixed is just got that datum, haven't you?
Yeah. Each unit's set off that fence there. So. So everything's set up. It's, you don't have to. There's very little adjustment in here for the for different boards. Depends on what you're taking off. But like I said, we'll go through the glue pot on the cold one at the end. Tape feed unit here. So as the tape comes in, there's a little spring plate here just to keep it against the side there. And then you've got two height guides, which you need to make sure are always set right. I think most of the tape you'll be using is probably 22mm. You just need to make sure the height guide's set right. What that does, it just prevents the tape from riding up and down as it's being fed in, and it hits the board at the right height. So if you loosen this knob off here, just take that one away. What you want to do, you want to bring it down until it touches the tape, then rise it 1/2 mm and tighten it off. So it's passing through, and there's very little, there's very little movement on the tape up and down. But yeah, it's still moving freely. You still want to always make sure it moves freely. And then there's another one here, this plate here. Same principle. Lift it up, bring it down onto the tape. Lift it 1/2 mm, and that way your tape's not going to ride up or ride down on your board as it's being applied. In here you've got a little roller, so when the temperature gets to 170, you'll hear a motor start. What that does, it starts the roller in the glue pot itself. Starts to circulate the glue in there, and also there's the tape feed roller will start turning as well.
Where is the actual start point when you set up your tape? The end.
So I was about to say the next point is a guillotine. So this brass plate here houses the guillotine blade. So when you put your tape in, you want to put it either you know, on the guillotine or just after the guillotine. Just on that first one to make sure it gets through. Obviously on all sequential ones it'll be on the guillotine line spot. So yeah, this is the guillotine here. Yeah, so tape feed up to or beyond, or just beyond that guillotine blade in there. Next thing it's going to come to is these two little pressure rollers here. What these do, So what these do, once your glues come past this point, your panels come past this point here, it will have your glue on it. It gets to here and it'll meet up with the tape. What these two rollers do, they just push the tape onto the board, onto the glue. You know, so it's sticking on there pretty well. This is one of the adjustments you'll have to change when you're changing tape. If you look on there, you've got a little plate, and it says 0.5, 2mm, 3mm. There's two countersunk screws attached to either side. So what you do with these knobs here, you bring the rollers back or forward, depending on the tape, so that the flat of the screw just lines up with the mark. So if you use a 2mm tape, line the screws up where it says 2mm. It doesn't say 1mm, it says 0.5, so somewhere in between the 2 and 0.5. It's not that accurate. It doesn't have to be that accurate as long as it's somewhere within the ballpark. All it means is just you're putting pressure on the panel as it's going through with the tape.
They're locking.
No. So they won't move. No, they're just they are tension slightly because of the underspring pressure.
And the height, there was no locking.
No, not locking. No, they won't move.
So just run through that again. So both of those are just they're both designed to put pressure on the the tape,
yeah.
And they should both be set the same.
Set to the thickness of the tape. Yeah. So yeah, you just have to get your head in there.
It's interesting that they are independent and then don't move as one.
Yeah, it's because the first one's slightly
A
further
little
back.
bit off because of the way the tapes come in.
So you'd have that a smidgen.
Just
less.
line it up with the gauge, because the gauge is slightly the printed gauge on there is different.
It's got the adjustment.
Yeah,
built into it.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's because everything's coming at an angle, so you want obviously the first one to push it into place, and the second one puts a bit more pressure on.
That other machine we just sent away, we had to play around with those. One was too far forward. I mean, they were fixed, but if one was too far forward, feed it away.
Oh, I have to push the panel out with it.
Yeah.
Well, these are one you can see they're under spring pressure, so they will come back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I know some of the older ones are different than the small ones. It's fixed. It's just a rubber roller, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's still far forward. It keeps the board.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously this is spring pressure, so they give way rather than the board being kicked out.
You didn't really notice on real short or real long.
Yeah. On the real short stuff where it's not being held as much by the track, you would see on those. You do see on those machines it kicks it out of the way. But yeah, these are spring pressure, so the rollers move back out of the way, but it's obviously still under pressure to give the to stick it out properly. So much better than that design. Like I say, the steel roller, so obviously there's no giving them, it's the gives in the spring rather than rubber. So at that point, what you'll find is panels going through, it's dragging this tape. This should be rotating and pulling in the tape. And then once this switch here falls off the back of the board, there's a timer on it, and that'll activate the guillotine, cut the end of the tape, and then your panel will carry on obviously with the cut tape attached. Next unit we come to is the end trim unit. So as the panel comes along, this feeler here, this finger here, will be in one of two positions. Usually in there's two set vertical positions, but you mainly just can be using flush cut. So what that does, the panel will come along, start pushing the whole unit, and then this saw here, once it's in place there, this saw here will come forward and cut the tape, and then that will go down, and this will come to the back of the panel and pop up at the back of the panel and follow the panel as it's going through, and again this will just come forward, fire forward at the end of the tape to give you your flush cuts.
Is there any build up on that or alter the finish?
Yeah, so what I'll go through at the end is obviously after you've used it, you want to give it have it give it a quick clean down. You know, just I'll show you where obviously the build areas are, which you need to make sure built up. Because yeah, if anything just gets stuck to there, that will affect slightly the way your cut is on your board. But I'll go through with whoever's going to be in charge of the maintenance. You know, if there's any adjustments needs to be made, where they're to be made. But yeah, it's sounds pretty sweet at the moment. It's pretty flush. But yeah, so this unit here. Well, I'd say obviously if you're not going to be doing a radius stitch, then you don't have to worry about it at all. It's the same principle. It's just a different part of the fingers exposed, just to offset it to use the radius part of the blade. But if you're just going to be doing flush cuts, then it's not an issue. So yeah, that's unit. When the machine's running, you'll hear a unit moving around. That's this unit. It does go with quite some force because it's got to keep up with the panel. It's got to do the front. It's got to come back pretty quick and catch up with the back end of the panel and cut at the same speed as the panel. So yeah, when you hear something moving inside the machine, that's this unit here. Next unit comes to a trimmer, top and bottom trimmers. What these do, these are two cutter blocks which are rotating. For your 2mm, they will put their 1.5mm radius cutters in there, standard. They'll put a radius on the top and bottom. On your 2mm tape, that radius is slightly larger than the slightly larger than the height of the panel, because we want to leave extra on there for your radius scrapers, which will come down and put a nice smooth 2mm radius on there. When you're changing between 2 and 1mm tape, there's just a slight adjustment to do on here as well. These gauges here both read 0. Now for 0, that's set up nice for your 1mm tape. When you come to do 2mm tape, you want to change that until it reads 2. So you've got a locking nut behind it there. Same with the bottom, plastic locking nut. Loosen that off and then change the value to 2. And that's ready for your 2mm tape. Let's say if you go back to 1mm tape, loosen that off and take it back to 0.
Wind out and in.
Pardon?
You wind out and in.
Yeah, so it is quite a fine thread, so what you tend to do is it's not going to make too much difference, but yeah, it's good practice to obviously, when you're coming back, go past what the value you want into, so 9, go to the 999s, and then wind it forward on the screw until you hit 0, lock it off. When you go into 2mm, it doesn't matter because you're on the right side of the thread, but when you're going back to 0, go past your value, and then run it forward on 0 and lock it off. And that'll get you into the same position every time. But yeah, it's quite a fine thread on there. Next unit along are these two units, the two white castings. These are your edge scraper units. So what they do is, as the panels come in, a fixed blade in there, and they'll come in. They're only for your 2mm tape. They'll come in and just scrape off the final. The final bit of tape on there. So from your cutter, you've left excess tape on there.
What you normally do with the planer blade at the end.
Yeah. So and then basically that leaves 0.1mm of extra tape on there. That comes in. Just scrapes, because it's stationary, it scrapes. It's nice, smooth finish on there. Whereas obviously finish from your cutter block, if you look very, very closely, you'll be able to see obviously machining marks from each individual cut. This just gives a nice flush, straight finish on there. Now, because these are it's a fixed blade, there's no adjustment on it. It's a stationary blade. It's a 2mm radius. You can't use this for your 1mm tape. So for your 1mm tape, it's still just a finish from your cutter block. So when you're using this unit on 1mm tape. So if you've gone from 2mm to 1mm, you want to exclude the unit. So if you look here, you've just got these two metal lugs on this part here. To exclude it, if you pull it out of the way, that falls into place and locks it out. Same with the top one here, you have to see. But at the moment it's loose, so you know the unit's in place. You pull it back until it drops into place, and you know it's excluded. So yeah, so you need to remember when you change it to 1mm, this needs to be set to 0, and these two units here needs to be excluded. These two units can be excluded as well if you want to. Say if you want to pull a piece through and you just want to tape it and just want to put tape on and nothing else, you don't want anything to cut. Because we press start one, these motors will start up. But yeah, same again principle. Use these handles here. Just pull them out of the way until you hear it, those fingers fall into place. To put it back in, go that way. Once they're loose, you know that it's in position. And once down here, that's in position as well. Yeah, there are some minor adjustments on the radius scrapers, but I'll go through that with whoever's going to be doing the maintenance of the machine, because it's not something which needs to be adjusted very often. Any questions on those units?
No, that's all good.
Cool. And then the last units we've got down here are glue scraper units. Glue scraper or flat blade units. What they are is a little flat knife which just sit top and bottom flush with the board, and they'll take off any excess glue on the board, so you shouldn't have to scrape it afterwards. There shouldn't be any manual scraping. It'll get off the excess glue which is left between the panel and the tape. The same again, these units that can be excluded if you don't want to use them for whatever reason. If you push this one down, put the lever down, that locks it out of place. Push this one up, bring that lever down, that locks that out of place. Yeah. So yeah, in and out. Most of the time, I imagine you'll leave them in place. Some people exclude them if they're doing a textured board, or something where it's not perfectly flat on board. You might just take the top edge off the paper and see white marks, especially if it's a dark board. Or if, say, you're edging a board which has been cut a couple of days ago and it's not been pre-milled, then what happens is the edge of that board will swell slightly, and then you'd likely see on your glue scraper it'll probably take off the top of the board just from the swell. Swell of the board. It looks pretty dry in here at the moment. I don't think boards are going to swell it. But yeah.
And the adjustment again for those, that's the technicians.
Yeah. So it's not a gauged adjustment. You know, it's a fine adjustment. Yeah. So, but they're set up to take off. We'll see when we run it. It takes off about 9% of the glue anyway. So just a couple of. Yeah, you don't. Yeah, if you start to get too close, you can start to take off the top of the melamine.
It's a bit of a leading question, but do you find that this machine sometimes goes out of adjustment and being used?
Not really.
They're pretty reliable.
Yeah. Your final finish is, especially on your 2mm, determined by your radius scrapers, which are fixed. So they should always give a good finish, unless obviously over time, you know, and lots of use, those blades might dull a little bit. They might not give it as good a finish, but there's no reason why they should go out of position. Glue scrapers, the little four-sided knives, so you can always rotate those if they get dull. Anything, if it's not doing as it should, a lot of the time, 9% of the time, it's down to there'll probably be a bit of tape stuck in somewhere, or glue stuck in where something's not going into position.
Yep.
So it's just a lot of it is down to cleanliness and just a bit of good maintenance.
Yep.
They shouldn't really have to do any adjustments on there.
Yep.
You know.
Cool.
Over time, you know, I'd expect to do some adjustments as things move and things wear. But yeah, I think obviously for the.
I like you've got a couple of safety things on here to make sure things haven't been adjusted.
Yeah, the paint and stuff. Yeah. So yeah, especially stuff with the pneumatics, they don't want to be adjusted, especially on this unit here,
Yeah.
because it's doing all the sides. It's well tuned in, you know, obviously the pressures and the vents. You can have a lot of issues if people start adjusting those, but
People do though, eh?
you find that when people they think they know how to adjust things, they get itchy fingers and things, yeah. But especially with the units which do all four sides or both sides of the panel, they're very finely tuned, you know, the balance of them is pretty,
You know, when we were sliding this around, does that like put it out of sequence? You know, the old machines.
no, because
used to have
when you
little-
press the black button, it knocks all the air off
Yeah.
in here, so there's no air pressure in
basically
there.
reset.
Yeah, so it's so you can do
So it
that.
doesn't have to be in a start position, otherwise it'll falter. Or...
No, you see, you can do this.